Hello and welcome to Geek Warning, the podcast that puts the world's most interesting cycling tech and tech conversations into one place. I'm Dave Rome, Senior Tech Editor for Escape Collective, and joining me this week...
I'm Zach Edwards of Boulder Groupetto.
And I'm Josh Weinberg of Escape Collective, Tech and Culture Editor.
Nice. Obviously, we're missing Ronan, who is out traveling somewhere. Actually, I think this week I'm mistaken. I think it's just purely time zone issues. We've had time zone changes around the world, and we're struggling to meet up all together at once. But we will reunite once more very soon. But Zach, I believe you've been pretty busy since coming back from Girona. What's been the most interesting thing in your stand lately?
The most interesting thing? Put me on the spot here. I wouldn't say there's necessarily like one particularly interesting thing. It's just a lot of like, hi, you've been gone for a month. Can you please make my bike not make noise anymore? Some fun builds, some try builds. Yeah, that's probably about it, I guess. Nothing too particularly.
Nothing incredibly blingy or exciting?
I mean, it's all kind of blingy and exciting, I guess, but to what degree, I guess.
Spoilt for choice.
Yeah.
And Josh, where do we find you in the world at the moment?
I am at home here in Tempe, Arizona, right outside Phoenix, where it is starting to get quite hot. Kind of nearing the end of our daytime riding season as we approach the summer. So getting out early and late these days already.
Nice. Feeling recovered from sea otter?
No.
Oh, okay. That was quite the big hole of sleep deprivation that you dug there. So,
yeah, well, and it's
anyway.
one of those things where you go to a show and you get all this work done and then create a bunch more work for yourself while you're there, or to do when you get back home.
Yeah.
So speaking of third person there, but that is all about me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know you've been very busy working on a very big topic, literally speaking. So, yeah, something I think probably by next week we'll be able to have you on and discuss properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an exciting one. All right, we have plenty to get through this week. We've got a big new bike release, some fancy new products, a bunch of industry news to get through. Of course, we'll have Ask a Wrench at the end of the episode for those that are members of Escape Collective. But before we get to all that, I think we've got a little something on our mind, which is following last week, on Escape Collective, we published our collective favorites for bike travel cases. And yeah, part of that conversation, I guess that topic is something I'd seen online a few weeks prior, which is from Daniel Yang, who is the lead designer at Newhouse, a Californian-based frame manufacturer. And something he sort of highlighted was that he believes the travel bike is dead, that people requesting sort of coupler-based travel-specific bikes for him, he sort of tends to turn them away from it, saying it's not needed anymore, that the use case isn't needed. And his reasoning is that most airlines, at least in the US, have revised their policies around oversized baggage fees, and that's you no longer need to have a bike that collapses into something that doesn't look like a bike, and that you can only travel with these as a normal piece of luggage. I agree with some elements of that, but it did spark some thought in my mind that I think there's more to it than that. So let's discuss it. Zach,
Yep.
Am I thinking you have a travel-specific bike?
I do not have a travel-specific bike, but I have a bike that fits in a Ninja case.
Okay.
But I would say
from Oro case.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I travel with the bike pretty frequently. Just kind of visiting my wife and wherever she's racing or whatever. And I would say like kind of go between setups depending on what the trip is, and what's at the other end, in terms of transport. So as you mentioned, I have it's a Mosaic rim brake metal bike, mechanical shifting that I fit in a Ninja case, and that it does require a fair bit of disassembly. So that's like cranks have to come off, fork has to come off, obviously seat post and rear derailleur, and the wheels, which is a fair bit, and you have to be decently competent to be able to do that. But I would say it takes me less than 20 minutes to build or pack it up. That's quite nice. I would say I use that on maybe shorter trips, or trips where there's a lot of like public transport involved. Like taking it on the train is a lot easier. Or like if there's, so in America, generally, even if there's not a bike fee, you just kind of show up and you check it as a bag. In Europe, even if there's not a bike fee on most airlines, particularly like the smaller budget ones, you still have to book it as a bike, like pre-book it. Otherwise, they get really upset if you just show up with a big bike bag. And they're like, hi, I have a bag in this. You don't charge a bike fee. They're like, nope, sorry, there's no room. If you have a small bike case, like the Ninja case, then you don't necessarily have to do that because it's the same size as like a lot of people's normal large suitcases. But like this most recent trip I was on, it was a longer trip. So I wanted a bike that was faster than a rim brake, not aero in any kind of way bike, just so that I could somewhat try and keep up with Ruth. So I brought a bike that has disc brakes and internal cable routing, and it's just not practical to fit in that case. So I took that in a Pica case, which is smaller than normal, but still pretty light and like big enough to fit a bike, and you can take the bars off and fit it in. That's nice because it's still small enough to like fit in a rental car or take on the train and not a big problem. Downsides of that is it doesn't have wheels, so like lugging it around kind of sucks. But then also I've used a Cycon case, which can be really nice. That's nice. I would say like if I'm like with Reese bikes, if we're going to a race and we want to bring extra wheels, there's enough room in that you can basically put 2 sets of wheels in, and it's easier to wheel around, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think your point there about that stands out for me is where you talk about rental car and trains and all that. Like for me, it's traveling with a bike. The hassle is less about what to do once at the airport and more about getting to and from the airport is my experience. And like anytime I've traveled with like a hard case, for example, it's been a nightmare. You have to wait for like, if you're catching taxis, you have to wait for like or prearranged like a maxi taxis that with big vans. You know, you can't just hail a cab down and get your bike to the airport. So I've nearly missed flights as a result of having a hard case with me. At the same time, I think those little cases like Post Carry Do One, Oro case, obviously the original with the Ninja case, the little smaller size bags to fit a regular size bike, that I think you need to be, as Zach said, very competent with the disassembly and willing to disassemble a bike correctly to get it into such a case. So I think it's always going to be a trade-off, but yeah, I still kind of see that there is, if you were traveling a lot, there is benefit to a travel-specific bike because you can use something like an Oro case, but more easily collapse it into a size that fits without having to like necessarily take off cranks or take off your fork. Yeah. Anyways, Josh, where do you sit amongst this? You get a chance to look at a lot of nice bikes and custom bikes.
Yeah. I mean, I do travel with my bikes a lot as well, mostly gravel and mountain bikes. And especially going to Europe, or even like South America, it's such a pain. You kind of have to do it, but putting my bikes in my Evoc Travel Bag Pro, I think it's called, someone that I include in that in our collective favorites, but it's a massive bag, and you really have to have like a ride arranged ahead of time and figure out what you're going to do. Taking it on the trains and things like that in Europe it's a massive undertaking, and I hate it every time. So like the Ritchie breakaway bikes or something like that come with a coupling system in their own case, that Ian actually wrote about that one that he has. I think that's a great solution.
I had one.
You did?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not perfect, but like the size that it breaks down to and the ease that you can like maneuver those bikes. They don't offer a ton of options in those bikes, but the coupler idea is super interesting to me, and a bike that one day I'd like to have, like a gravel bike with couplers or something, I think, to really like condense it in a packable solution for those mainly like international trips or going to Japan or something like that. I think it would be really nice to have that system.
Yeah, I can confirm, like when I had that bike, it was a Ritchie breakaway Outback Carbon, and I reviewed it and then ended up buying the bike, but I shouldn't have because the geometry is compromised and it was just too low at the front end for me. But but having that bike in its case and like being able to travel anywhere in the world and put it in the back of any car was, for me, it sort of reminded me just how beneficial a travel specific bike can be in terms of freeing up your travel plans. Whereas, yeah, if you're traveling with like a dedicated Evoc or a Ski-Con or any of these like larger bike travel cases that make packing a bike convenient, you need to, yeah, Josh, you hinted at this. You need to have your logistics dialed. Like you need to know exactly that the car you're hiring or that you're being picked up in is suitable. And I've certainly had it where I remember in my youth getting picked up at the airport by friends to go to mountain bike races and them not having any space for my bike or my bag. And like, you're just like having to unpack the thing. And, we used to use cardboard boxes for that reason because you could discard the cardboard box at the airport and sort of fit the bike in whichever way you could. So yeah, I guess it depends on how rat baggy you want to go with all this, but it's, yeah, I think I'm going to still say there's a space in this world for travel specific bikes. And even if it is just simply to, yeah, as I mentioned, have it easier to pack into like that Oro Case Ninja that Zach uses.
Yeah, it's like what side of things do you want the annoying part to be, right? Do you want to like have to take your bike apart a lot more, or do you want to have the annoying part be like, okay, this bike bag's really easy and it has wheels and everything, but like I know that this is gonna suck when I get there when I take it on the train. Like I'm gonna be in everyone's way, everyone's gonna hate me, and like there's probably not gonna be a lift, so I'm taking it down the stairs, and like it's gonna suck. But you don't have to take your bike in half. It's like what part do you want to deal with?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, anyway, food for thought. I mean, travel specific bikes are obviously a luxury item and are not for everyone, but for people that travel a lot, I think it still remains something I'd be considering, and there's some really nice examples of them around. But yeah, for everyone else, I'd say check out that article on Escape Collective for really good proven cases.
And keep an eye out for Richie's new bike that we got a sneak peek of at Sea Otter.
Yeah.
They are doing a new kind of all-road carbon breakaway bike.
Yeah, that thing looks like very much like what I wanted my Outback Carbon to be. It's sort of like the next generation of that. So yeah, that thing looks cool. All right, well, yeah, traveling with a bike can be annoying, but plenty of options. And yeah, definitely check out the collective favorites on Escape Collective. It's a good one with a whole lot of recommendations and advice in it. So if you're looking to travel with a bike, plenty to take in with the topic. But let's move on to a PSA for this week. And Zach, I think you've got one. You're messaging me last week and sort of sharing a nightmarish task that you had in front of you, and I think you had some success. What was it and how satisfying was it?
Yeah, so it was a triathlon bike with a fully integrated front end, which is fine, normal. And the headset was completely blown on it because it's a triathlon bike, I guess. I don't know. So it was going to serve as the headset, and I was loosening the stem, which the bolts are kind of integrated into the base bar, and one of them wasn't attached anymore, which was great. And the bulk of the bolt was stuck inside the base bar. And I sent you a lovely photo of that and all of the salt corrosion surrounding everything. And I got the bolt out, which felt very good. And they didn't need a new, whatever, $500 base bar or whatever it costs.
That's a win.
Yeah, so it was a win. But the PSA is like, this is something that very easily could have been prevented by even just, I feel like on this bike, just washing it regularly.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
Like washing it might not have necessarily done the like rusty bearings any help, but like it would have kept some of the corrosion on things at bay on the bolts.
Yep.
So yeah, could have been avoided, but felt very, very good to get out.
Yep. How overdue for service was the bike in a way?
I think it had just been ridden on the trainer all winter.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the bike was fine. Like drivetrain wasn't worn out. Brake pads were fine. It was just like
just been sweated on.
Yeah,
where it's
pretty much just been sweated on for the last 4 months.
Yeah. Okay. Wash your bike.
Yep.
Sweat is corrosive. So yeah. What would you do with those stem bolts to ensure like that the heads aren't just popping off in future?
I mean, not to like throw the manufacturer under the bus, but they seemed like quite cheap bolts.
Yep.
They're just like a galvanized something cheap steel bolt. So put a nice stainless one in there, and hopefully that keeps things going for longer.
A lot of grease.
Yep, a lot of grease. Can't overdo it on these kind of bikes.
Well, yeah, I think it's just the photos showed a pretty disgusting headset area with a lot of dried up sweat in there. So
yeah,
I guess this is the PSA that we keep having. But
I think the photo,
wash your bike, and
the photo that I sent you was a photo that you can like see the smell in it.
yes. Was the little bit of bar tape on that base bar equally gross? Or
oh yeah, of course.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
okay.
And the elbow pads.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. Part of it.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yep, something like that.
All right. Well, yeah, wash your bike. I think that's as good of a PSA as we can get, and I'll go one further and say like things like stem bolts are worth undoing once in a while to clean them and re-grease them. I think that's you end up getting a lot of corrosion around them, and they tend to be ignored for long periods of time. But I would say, yeah, just don't ignore the things that you've been ignoring. Everything on the bike at some point will need attention. So, yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to some of the more interesting news that's come out over the last week. Some of this is very fresh. One of these things we accidentally spoke about in last week's episode. Yeah, speaking of, first on the list, Silca have entered the electric pump market. So they've got 2 pumps, but there's also some interesting news that came along with this. But Josh, you've been working on writing something that'll be live on Escape by the time this podcast is live. What's the story?
Yeah, so at Sea Otter, Silca had a few samples of their new mini tire inflators, mini electric pumps, whatever you want to call them, called the Electricos. And they were set to launch Thursday of this week, which I think is when we're airing. And it sounds like they got this initial batch of pumps into the States from China, where they're manufactured, before like the big hefty tariffs on Chinese imports went into effect. But they won't be able to get the rest of the pumps into the country, without those hefty tariffs now. So rather than pass those costs on to their customers or absorb those additional costs, they are, for now at least, not really going to be selling those pumps in the States. And, so other markets will be able to get them through dealers and potentially through Silca Direct. But in the States, because of those additional costs that are incurred with the tariffs, it doesn't make economic sense for Silca to sell those here.
Yeah, so it's kind of the first product we have heard about that is just going to not be available in the United States due to tariffs. Like, it's the first example in cycling that I've heard that it's like of simple like non-availability as a result. So I think it's an interesting one, and certainly worth the read, because I think Josh, you heard from another Josh, Josh Portner, in response to this. You're sort of asking for comment, and he gave his usual length of response, which is very, very insightful and more transparent than a lot of CEOs provide. So I think we're just going to publish that response. But yeah, it sort of goes into a full breakdown of costs and how it would have impacted the final price, and how it's no longer just makes it non-viable basically for the company. So, but yeah, anyway, for people outside the US, these pumps will be available in 2 sizes: one tiny little one without a gauge, one slightly larger one with a gauge. I haven't tried them yet, but I plan to. I'm hoping to get some samples to include in an upcoming group test in the near future. So yeah, we'll see how they fare. But one cool feature I like the sound of is that the chuck on it can be used with like a Schrader adapter or a Schrader chuck, so you can basically grab any other pre-existing Silca Presta chuck and thread it in, which I think's kind of a neat touch. So
of like existing in their overall pump ecosystem, which is kind of a interesting way to do it, and something that probably a
Mm.
lot of other brands, can't really do because they don't make actual,
don't have pumps.
other types of pumps. Yeah.
While on the topic, I mean, Joe Lindsay, our production editor, our most senior editor at Escape, he pointed out to me that he's kind of hating this new wave of electric pumps, and that he's just like, what's wrong with CO2 and what's wrong with mini pump? What am I missing? And the conversation is basically like, you're not missing much. It's just laziness. I mean, it's kind of like the convenience and speed of CO2 without the fear of like one shot chance kind of risk. So I think for me it's as simple as that when you're talking about a portable inflator to go in like a saddlebag or to go on a ride with you. I think you should see it as a CO2, but perhaps with a bit more just maybe a little bit more waste, a little less waste if you're using it heaps, and just the opportunity to get it exactly, get repeated uses out of it and dial in that pressure, whereas the CO2 kind of tends to be a one-shot go and also can kind of damage your sealant inside the tire.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'm still like kind of new to these pumps, but I'm a lot more likely to throw one of these in my saddlebag than I am, CO2. I've been kind of like avoiding CO2 as much as possible lately, just because I hate like continuing to buy those canisters. Even though like they're great, like you kind of need them for an emergency, but having the pump, I think is a much better option, and they get you, the kind of similar PSI that CO2 will get you. So I don't really see a disadvantage there. I mean, depending on how many CO2 cartridges you carry, the little the mini Silca pump, for example, like it weighs probably not much different. They're going to get some weights on it later this evening, actually, but and then they say it's like equivalent to the amount of CO2 that you get out of like 3 cartridges, and on the big one it's 9 cartridges. So and then on some of the bigger ones, I think it's interesting for folks that don't want to carry a floor pump in their vehicles to throw one of the bigger ones in there, or to kind of replace the need for a floor pump in your garage if you've got a small space or something like that.
Sure.
I mean, floor pumps aren't that big, but I think there are some interesting advantages, and I think it's one of those things where once you get one, it'll be kind of hard to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously had these for quite a few years, and I agree with the larger category. So the tiny little ones are designed to be like a mini pump / CO2 replacement. The larger ones are more designed to be like a floor pump replacement. The larger ones I've used for years, and I haven't gone back. I continue to like use the Fumpa. I just find it's basically like a digital pressure gauge that inflates, is sort of how I'd often describe it. So a floor pump, you connect, the floor pump then backfills with air, and you have like, a couple of pumps to just get back to square one, and then you're still pumping. And whereas the Fumpa, you basically connect it, push a button, and it's done within a matter of seconds to top up a tire before your ride. And it's, a gauge that I've learned to trust. So I think that's the appeal there. And obviously they're significantly more portable than any floor pump, so they're perfect for travel, perfect for putting in a car. The tiny little ones, I think it's just worth noting that none of them on the market are waterproof, and they do require charging. So it's sort of the type of thing not to like put on your bike and forget it's there and want 2 years later, because you're going to want to look after it. You're going to want to make sure it's in a sealed bag, and ideally it's Josh showing me his little baggie with the pump in it.
Yeah, actually, the Silcas came with this little baggie that is looks like waterproof. I mean, maybe not totally waterproof.
Yeah, a lot of the pumps now come with that sort of reusable bag.
That's kind of
now.
cool.
So and just remember to charge it every few months, because it sort of will trickle drain. But anyway, let's move on from pumps. But check out Josh's article on, I guess, the economics of importing these things into the US now. I think that's an interesting thing, and I will test these things in the future. there's a new bike. Factor have a new road bike out. Brand new. It's called the Monza, and I initially found this one to be a little bit confusing. I kind of, I mean, the press release basically, let me quote it. Delivers elite level performance for serious road races, fusing real world usability with Factor's racing DNA, which didn't really tell me why it looks like an Ostro, but isn't an Ostro and isn't replacing the Ostro. But diving a little deeper into this, I mean, the simplest way I'd put it is it's basically a new price point version of the Ostro. So it's most notably the front end is greatly simplified. So it's moves to a oversized bearing top and bottom versus the Ostro's more narrow and slimmer headset system. So yeah, it's got a 1.5-inch headset bearings top and bottom, which then means it has like a regular round steerer tube inside, so that's easier to make. And then the front end just is sort of simpler shapes. There's no sort of aero scoop beneath the head tube like the Ostro. It's just a bit more normal looking in that sense. So yeah. Anyway, Zach, have you had a look at this thing?
Yeah, I think it looks sweet. Initially, I thought it was like the affordable race bike, like similar to like, I don't know, a Cervelo Soloist or something. But this seems much more.
Kind of is.
It's kind of is, but it's kind of not. It's like the people's racy bike. Like it has more tire clearance.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more upright position. Like the stack on it is a little bit taller. Has internal frame storage.
A little bit.
Like it's just like a more usable day-to-day bike that still could be raced, but isn't necessarily like an all-out race bike for less money as well.
Yeah. I think compare it to the Solus is a pretty good approach, and I think it is still an odd one to me because it's kind of like if you read the press release, it almost sounds like Factor had released an endurance road bike, but didn't want to call it an endurance road bike. But then the geometry is still pretty racy. They've only added 10 millimeters of stack in the sizes compared to the Ostro. So it is still more leaning towards the race end of things, but then there's internal frame storage, there's clearance for 34 mil tires, so it kind of just is like an everyday performance road bike. But yeah, just at a cheaper price point compared to the Ostro.
Because I feel like calling it an endurance road bike, like I don't know, a few years ago would have been fine, right? But I feel like endurance road bikes now, they like have 40 mil tire clearance, and people advertise them as like you can use this for like kind of gravel bike. Like this isn't that. This is a proper like full on road bike.
Yeah.
Not a like, oh, you could do gravel, put a 40 mil tire on it. This is and it's not.
It also doesn't have endurance.
Yeah, it's geometry. Not. It's just a little bit higher stack.
Yeah. 10 mil isn't much in the grand scheme of things, given a lot of people buying these bikes, buying the Ostro tend to run 20, 30 mil of spaces. Yep. So I mean, the other thing to note, that extra 10 mil stack obviously brings in the reach a little bit. And then they've also got a new cockpit, a new cheaper cockpit, the HB04, which is simpler one-piece cockpit, but that also has a reach that is 5 millimeters shorter versus the handlebar on the Ostro. So you are getting a fit that is slightly more accessible, I'd say. But one of the things that stood out to me though is this frame has what Factor is calling mini UDH. So it's a UDH frame, but it's got its own thing. And I guess Factor are not shy to introduce new standards or new fitments when they feel it's necessary. I mean, they were kind of the first to do like a asymmetric T47, which is used by I think Cervelo as well now. But it's mini UDH. Basically a UDH derailleur, but the threaded portion is 4.5 millimeters shorter, with the goal of then doing like a narrower dropout that sort of fits better on a road bike. I'm weary of it because of how it just like creates more things to keep track of.
I didn't see this in the press release. It's interesting. So I feel like if you had this frame and it's a narrower dropout, but you wanted to put, say, an Explorer rear derailleur on it, do you have to put a spacer in there, or how does that work?
Yes, you need that 4.5 millimeter spacer in between the derailleur full mount to make it work.
I kind of like it. because if you're not using it, then it's going to look way more sleek. Because that's the thing with a UDH on a road bike, is it like kind of sticks way out and looks not clean.
Yep. I mean, that's Factor's whole reasoning for kind of ignoring SRAM's universal derail hanger system here and providing the same hanger fitment, but just reducing the width of it. They're going to be making their own hangers as a result of this, and it sort of gets a little complicated at that point because the hanger is just the threaded portion again is 4.5 mil reduced, so you then don't need that spacer.
Like worst case scenario, you're somewhere and you need a derailleur hanger and you can only get a normal UDH, you could use that spacer.
Yep. Yeah, as long as you have that 4.5 mil washer with you, then you can use any UDH. And I think the bikes will come that way with like the regular hanger and the washer. But yeah, it sort of does add complexity, which is that I think if you're running in future, if you've got the hanger set up with that mini UDH hanger specific from Factor, it'll be aluminium, so it'll probably be fairly indestructible. But it's I think there's going to be a separate axle as well that's 4.5 mil shorter in order to match it so it doesn't protrude at the end. So I think, yeah, there's some things to keep track of there if you're sort of ever looking to switch back and forth between the two systems. But I don't hate it. I think Factor are addressing an issue here, which is that the UDH does create a very wide dropout for some bikes, and I think that stems from the fact that it was initially designed around mountain bikes where that extra width makes sense, but on a sleek carbon fiber era road bike, that extra dropout does start to look pretty fat.
Feels like it wouldn't surprise me if some other companies followed suit.
Yeah, I suspect other brands will, and they'll decide that they want to do it in a width that suits them, and we'll end up with 30 different width versions of the UDH. And in 10 years from now, we'll blame Factor for this mess. But my only wish is that brands just copy what Factor are doing, and that we only end up with at most a second UDH system.
Yeah, like road UDH standard.
Anyway, yeah, the Monza, it's a bike worth looking at. I think Ronan is going to call one in for review at some point, and it's pricing wise, it is below the Ostro. So you're looking at $4,000 for a complete frame set, or complete bikes starting from $6,800 USD. That's for like an Ultegra 12-speed Di2 build. So yeah, quite a bit cheaper than an Ostro. This is sort of more of a bike to compete with the real mainstream brands. Next on the list, TrickStuff, which is I believe they're German, right?
Correct. They're German brake and component brand.
Yeah, very, very, very bling stuff, very scarce. They got acquired by DT Swiss a couple of years ago, and I mean, what's the news here?
Yeah, the big news out of the DT Swiss TrickStuff acquisition that we've been kind of hearing rumors about for a long time is that DT is going to be bringing the brake sets to the US. So super exciting for US based customers. These brakes have been, like you said, very, very hard to get a hold of. I know even for a while it was hard for like media to get them to review. They were made very small batches. They're all CNC brakes. They resemble like a Hope brake kind of, but have a bit more of a very interesting like lever design, very elegant shape, super interesting assembly. They are very expensive too. The Maxima goes for about 1,300 euro, which I think is almost $1,500 for a brake set. And then the others are around 1,100 euros, so that's like $1,300 for a brake set. So quite a boutique item. But again, with the DT acquisition, it doesn't look like, at least not right now, that the prices will change. Like, I don't think that the scaling up production will influence that, at least not now. However, they will be most likely easier to get, especially if you live in the US. So, but an interesting system. They use a different fluid than SRAM or Shimano or Hope brakes do. They use a a specific fluid that's made for TrickStuff called Bionol, Bionol, and it's supposed to have different properties based around heat, dissipating heat, and leading to more consistent braking. That's like the big draw of these brakes, is that they've been known to be like just super powerful and have really precise feel and modulation to them. And they claim that part of this is because of the fluid that they use, but then also the construction of the brakes, the pads that they're using, their pistons, and all of that. But anyway, the Bionol has different viscosity than mineral oil or dot fluid, but it is a vegetable oil based fluid, and so it's like a little bit less abrasive than like dot fluid, but more similar to mineral oil on that in that regard. So a little bit more environmentally friendly.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, well, one to watch out for. I think you've got some brakes inbound to review, and
I feel
keen to see how
that's
you go
one
with that.
thing. In my years of doing this, like this is like one of the things I'm like, oh wow, like these are actually getting shipped. I'm actually going to get to review them. Not knowing anything about how they work.
Only ever having seen them on show bikes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things that they kind of had this like mystique or aura around them. But it's pretty cool that they're ramping up production and making them more available. So yeah, more to come on this.
Nice. Okay. Also new, Kona have a new Hei Hei. What is this thing?
Yeah, so this is like their kind of cross country, down country bike. Interesting approach with this one. They're doing like it's coming with a 130 mil fork rather than what we've seen with a lot of that kind of down country bike. Having like 120 front travel, 120 rear travel. They're going a little bit of, they're increasing that a little bit with this one, making it, essentially more of a capable bike, I guess, if, when you're adding that much travel. Kind of like in this conversation of cross country bikes getting bigger, courses getting harder, taking your cross country bike and doing a lot more with it, racing short track during the week and then taking it up to the mountains on the weekends type of thing. It looks like a super versatile bike. They've got tons of mounting options there. So I think there's like nine or so bottle bosses. So strapping tool rolls and water bottle cages and all that kind of stuff is going to be no problem on this bike. So but there's some interesting quirks about the geometry that I'm interested in, seeing for myself, like how it rides. The reach looks pretty long on like the extra large, like I would ride, but it does also have a pretty steep seat angle. So it's might that seat, like the rest of the angles might compensate for what seems like a pretty long reach on paper. So I think again on that one, gonna try to bring one in and test it against a few of the other similar bikes in that category that have dropped lately or will be coming out later this year. So really interesting category, and cool to see Kona making a statement in it after almost going out of business last year.
Rocky period for Kona, but it is cool to see them, I guess, continuing with that sort of iconic line. So one to watch. Bit of, speaking of rocky periods, I mean, there's a bit of a sad one, which is Revel, company out of Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. They're shutting their doors.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like this week. We received notice that they had sent a letter out to their dealers saying that they were in fact shutting the doors in the very near future, and we're going to be liquidating their inventory. I actually have a friend that's worked there really for a long time, since the early days, and I've tried to get in touch with him. Haven't really gotten much back, except for him saying that he is the one in charge of the liquidation right now.
Oh.
That he's extremely busy doing that. So we haven't really gotten much more information on kind of what happened there. You know, all the factors that led to this decision to end the business. But it is an unfortunate one. That brand was super popular with riders. My wife actually has one of their bikes. She's got one of the first Rangers that they came out with, and she loves it. You know, it's probably 5 years old, and she has no desire to replace it. You know, it's just been kind of one of those mainstay brands since they came out, and they're, you know, fairly young brand, like I think under less than 10 years old. So bummer to see. But they were acquired by a private equity firm, as far as I know. That, you know, the original owners they sold the business a few years ago, and it's kind of been ebbing and flowing since then.
Oh, thoughts with all the staff involved. Yeah, it's a rough time, but more rough times. Ari, previously known as Fazari, they had, sounds like yeah, I mean, they had a fast and furious moment.
Yeah.
Let me try that again. They had a truck of bikes stolen. Is that right?
Yeah, it sounds like the bikes maybe were stolen out of the truck. It's a little, I don't think, like, it doesn't sound like the whole truck has disappeared, but maybe the bikes were emptied out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, hundreds of bikes, it sounds like. Even some, you know, like there's a new model in there that hasn't even been really released yet, that the thieves got away with. So
the length that some media will go to in order to break an embargo, I tell you.
Oh yeah, we're seeing a lot of creative approaches these days, but not sure this was one of those. Yeah, I you know, I've been kind of like watching their Instagram, and I don't think there have been any updates on these bikes yet. So they were stolen in like the Los Angeles area, and it sounds like a few of them, or what appear to be bikes from this heist, were, you know, being sold or attempted to be sold to bike shops. So the bikes are kind of like out there, and
they're already offloading them.
Yeah.
Was Vin Diesel spotted at the scene?
I have not heard that reported, Dave.
Okay. All right.
That one.
Yeah, well, anyway, hope that works out. And yeah, I mean, I saw some people in our comment section related to this article sort of saying, you know, in chances are this container was insured, but maybe you know, with the way tariffs are, that maybe they'll be well worse off for this, with you know, if they need to reland more stock, that they'll be coming in at significantly higher tariffs given the timing of all this. So yeah, I mean, all that speculation, but makes sense. And yeah, hopefully Ari can do it right through this, because it's got to be a big costly thing for them to happen to them. So well, that's a wrap on the news for this week. Yeah, as always, I'll encourage you to head to escapecollective.com. Even add /tech if you really want to narrow it down. And yeah, that'll show you what we've been working on this week and what's in the news. Yeah, there's some things we haven't covered that you'll find online. But anyway, I think it's time that we get to Ask a Wrench. And yeah, as a reminder, Ask a Wrench now is only available to members of Escape Collective. So if you're not already, then now is a great time to join, support what we do, get access to all that we write and talk about, and yeah, get to experience the podcast in their full and not hear this anymore, and just be able to hear the greatness that is Ask a Wrench. So this week it's the three of us will be answering questions, and we've got questions including one about wiring up a bike with a generation old wired Di2, considerations there. There's a question about flight attendant, RockShox's flight attendant on a mountain bike, and we'll finish up with a question about gravel suspension and sort of getting more comfort in a modern gravel bike, and you know, whether you start with a suspension stem, suspension fork, yeah, just general thoughts on that topic. So I think that's going to be a good one as well. All right. Well, yeah. If you'd like to become a member of Escape Collective, head to escapecollective.com/join, become a member, and then it's just a few easy steps to get yourself back to the member-only edition of this podcast. You'll basically head to our podcast page and you'll find instructions on how to get the podcast reoccurring in your podcast player of choice. Alternatively, that podcast page on our website acts as a player as well. If you're logged in, you'll be able to just listen to the full episodes there. Okay, well, for those on the free feed, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next week, and do consider subscribing. But for everyone else, let's kick it on.